5-1 Utah, coming in ranked number 21 in the nation. They will travel to Provo. Short trip because it is an in-state opponent. They're taking on undefeated number 13 ranked team in the nation in the BYU Cougars. Now, we have seen this BYU team obviously be undefeated and have surprised some people. I mean, think about what they went through in the offseason, very late, like in summer ball and borderline in fall camp. We saw Jake Redzone enter the transfer portal. He ends up transferring back out to Tulane. And so what you thought was going to be like a QB2 battle ends up turning into a QB1 matchup where Bear Bachmeier, a true freshman quarterback, he has stepped in, he's won that starting quarterback job, and has really handled the pressure of being a starting quarterback at the power forward level extremely well. 1,200 yards passing, 8 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. His QBR per ESPN right now is is it 32nd? That puts him in about a mid-tier quarterback in the power conference from a starting quarterback perspective. So for the fact that you have a true freshman that you didn't even necessarily have to coddle, that's actually some really good work. And it's really just a testament to this coaching staff and really just the team as a whole for really finding a way, in spite of all those distractions, finding a way to come together and make some really good like things happen. Right, you know, just a type of team that really is more than the sum of its parts. That kind of team, not that they don't have any parts. LJ Morton has been excellent this year, averaging almost 6.5 yards a carry. Plus Chase Roberts with 420 yards, nice. Receiving through the air as well, and a defense that is pretty good, but a defense that, you know, maybe is starting to show itself in terms of being a little bit more exposed as the year has gone on. So at first they started off extremely hot, right? But as the season has gone on for BYU, this is a team that started out like they've shut out Portland State and they only allowed a field goal to Stanford. But as the season went on, you know, that defense has shown more holes and shown more issues. East Carolina, they gave a 13. Very next game, game number 4, was Colorado. 21 they let up. A West Virginia team that hasn't really shown much signs of life under year number 1 of Rick Rod. They give up 24 to that team as well. And then the Arizona game, actually, they needed overtime to beat Arizona. A solid Arizona team, but you can also argue that Arizona is the best team that BYU has gone up against. And even though it was on the road, I do want to mention it is hard to win on the road in college football. Some teams make it look easier than others. At the same time, though, it's just a little concerning just from the standpoint of, you know, can this BYU team scale up and play against top competition? Because this Utah team on the other side, that this Utah team is going to be the toughest team that BYU has played up against all year, and frankly, at this point in the year, we do see Utah as a little bit more battle tested. Keep in mind, BYU has not played against a ranked opponent this entire year. Utah, on the other hand, has played 2, at least at the time that they actually played that particular opponent. And outside of that Texas Tech game, I know a lot of people like to talk about the Texas Tech game for Utah, where they were dominated. But really, if you watch that Texas Tech game back for Utah, and that was also a game where Devin Dampier was not fully healthy. Even then, with that defense, they have been able to make it a very competitive game, a much more competitive game than what the score says. And yes, it looks bad on the scoreboard, but, you know, at the same time, like, this Utah team, like, having a 4-quarter game, even though they may have not had their typical fastball on offense, because usually Utah is able to control the line of scrimmage. They weren't able to do that, and that's how we got that score. But give all the credit in the world at the same time to Utah, right? They were also able to bounce back extremely well. I mean, look at the West Virginia game, a team that BYU didn't struggle with, but they didn't necessarily dominate either. That was not the case with Utah either. They won 48-14. That ends up being the final score there. And then they just came off dominating Arizona State. That was a game that we just previewed. That was a game in which we thought that Arizona State would win that game. Granted, when we recorded that, that was under the assumption that Sam Levitt would play. We had Jeff Sims play instead. Probably would have made a difference with the way Utah was playing that night. Anyways, Utah was still won convincingly. You could not convince me otherwise. But yeah, I mean, you really look at what Utah has been doing, and Utah, outside of the Texas Tech game, they have dominated their opponents. And a team that's able to, look what happened to them a couple of weeks ago. They dust themselves off, and they've been playing significantly better football since then, right? So, with that being said, what's really the biggest keys into this one in terms of, what's going to decide whether this ends up being a win or a loss? For BYU, you're really looking at trying to get explosive plays. Because this is not going to be the type of defense that you're going to consistently have methodical drive. So being able to hit multiple home runs, being able to hit explosive plays down the field, whether that be in the passing game or in the running game, that's going to be the biggest thing for BYU, being able to hit those explosive plays so that maybe you could demoralize Utah's defense, which is a really good defense, a defense that I think is even better than BYU's. And I think, frankly, a little bit more consistent outside of the Texas Tech game that I mentioned earlier. Now, for Utah, on the other hand, you're talking about Devin Dampier. You got to get him going, whether that is like tapping into not only his rushing ability, but continue to see his marked improvement as a passer as well as Utah obviously winning that line of scrimmage. If Utah wins the line of scrimmage, and I think they're a very capable team of doing that. This is one of the best front sevens in the Big 12, as well as one of the best offensive lines in the Big 12. That it could make it a really long night for BYU, even though this game is happening at home, which does lead me into pulling up this model one last time tonight, and let's talk about what does FanDuel think, and what does our internal metrics here at College Football Red Zone, what are they showing us here as well? So FanDuel is showing a 3.5-point favorite in favor of the Utah Utes. Model is a little bit tighter, actually quite a bit tighter. Utah only listed as a 1-point favorite. So what the model is saying is that on a neutral site field, BYU would in fact be favored on a neutral site field over Utah. This was happening in, say, Big 12 championship. Just throwing that out there as a hypothetical. Not saying that these two teams will, in fact, meet up in the Big 12 championship game. So I honestly been feeling really conflicted about this game, because I know that BYU coaching staff, their head coach, his name is I can pull out his face. I can't remember his name. I know his name is a little bit hard to pronounce. I do think that I see more paths for Utah to be able to win this game. Not just because I think they have a more dynamic quarterback and a tad bit and a more experienced quarterback in Devin Dampier. I do think that distinct advantage in the trenches that Utah has shown through most of the season is going to come out and show itself out once again. Again, I think BYU is an incredibly coached team, but even then, like, Utah is incredibly well coached as well under Kenny Whittingham. But I do want to give BYU their flowers. They have found ways, even with the late departure of Jake Redsoff, to be able to find ways to win consistently and prove a lot of people wrong. And this is absolutely a rivalry game, so the Holy War can bring some unexplainable things. We have seen that happen before in rivalry games as well. So I don't want to outright sit here and dismiss BYU. But even though, candidly, BYU was going to be my original pick to win this game, because I do like the fact that this game is happening at home, and that's a very good environment within the confines of the Big 12. I think I just trust Utah a lot more the more that I've sat down and I thought about this game between when I first started writing this preview up, writing the script up, and now getting into the actual pick. So originally I was going to go in one direction, But I think I'm going to go in a different direction instead. I'm going with Utah winning because I do like their quarterback play. I trust quarterback play a little bit more. I think they're going to win in the trenches, which is going to limit what BYU is going to be able to do offensively. It's going to be able to put them in a position to where they're going to be able to really rattle up Bear Bachmeier, who is a true freshman, I believe. Either redshirt freshman or two freshmen. Either way, freshman, very young quarterback, hasn't played a ton of football. Devin Dampier has played more football. So for those reasons, that's why I think I am going to, in fact, go with the Utah Utes. I'm going to defy the model because I am going to take it like a step further. I do think Utah also covers. Going to be a very competitive game. I really do believe that. I think BYU is going to put up a fight. It is at home. It is a rivalry game. This is not going to be an easy win for Utah by any means, but I do think that there's more paths to victory for Utah than there is for BYU, and because of that, I am going with Utah winning 31 to 27-ish being that final score. An 8 p.m. game on Fox. Very excited to see how it turns out. It's going to have some massive implications for the Big 12.